All right, we have another case here to look at. It looks like this case is an XG3D case, I can tell by the volume size. And we are going to be looking at doing a plan for site number 29. It looks like the nerve has been mapped, and we will double check to make sure that is correctly done. And if you also notice, the nerve is not mapped all the way, it's just mapped in the critical area. And since we are not dealing with the canine or first premolar, there would be no need to spend a lot of time looking for the anterior loop of the mental frame in there. So let's take a closer look. So here we are with our plan. So again, the first thing I did was I went ahead and duplicated it and made my own plan. So what I would like to do here is walk you guys through that step. What I'm actually going to do here is go ahead and remove my plan. So we just go to plan, we make sure mine is checked. We're going to click remove, and it says, do you really want to remove the plan? And I say yes. So now my plan is gone and plan number 1 is there. Let's look at plan number 2. So let's go ahead and duplicate. We'll go to plan, duplicate plan, and then I like to type my name in there, and then go ahead and click OK. And this way it is a duplicate of the plan, just allows me to make editing and allows me to go back and show the original plan there. Let's go ahead and start. In this particular place, let's take a look at plan number 1, since it's there, obviously it was done. And I think, if we look at this from a perspective of just the bone, it's a pretty well done plan. Obviously, in an ideal world, we'd like to have a little more space here. You can see this area is going to be thin. There's a good chance that while we may not expose the implant here, there's a good chance that we may end up with a dehiscence here simply from the trauma of the surgery. So a solution for that would be to move the implant over. But obviously in doing that, we get a little bit close here. Some of us aren't very comfortable with that. So the other solution would then be to tilt the implant back, probably so. And to be quite honest with you, this is probably what you get back typically from your friendly surgeon. The implant would be placed where the bone was, but as you can see here with the CEREC data, we would have a difficult time restoring this. We would then have to take an implant that's basically coming out of the lingual wall of the tooth and then have a custom abutment fabricated and bring that into ideal. So just to kind of give you guys an idea of what that would look like, this particular case would look something like this. With the custom abutment like that, and the screw would actually go in right here. And then the crown will go on top, have to be cemented. We've all seen these cases, and we've all experienced the frustration that these cases provide. This is why we're such big believers in the crown down approach. So obviously you can see that's a problem here from the occlusal view. From the axial view, we can see the implant is going through. Now, if I may be a little bit critical here as well, what I like to do when planning these is mentally, visually, I like to outline. There's the buccal area. There's the lingual area. Here's the mesial of this tooth. Here's the distal of this tooth. And then X marks the spot. Okay, so this gives you an idea of visually where I would like to see my implant access coming from. And we can see here clearly that our implant access is right there. That compared to where we should be kind of gives you an idea of what we're looking at. So let's go ahead and take a look at plan number 2. And this plan, as you can immediately see, is a bit better. It is coming through the tooth at least now, but if we were to come here and take a look, again, let us go through our exercise. I know sometimes it becomes a little bit boring to do all of this, but there's a reason it's so valuable, is that it doesn't lie. That's probably not a great color for us. Here's the distal, 28, mesial, and if we were to draw a line, it'd be probably about right here. So I'd really like my implant access to be somewhere here, and obviously we can see we're a little bit lingual, and if we were to measure this space versus this space, we can see that we're a little bit to the distal as well, because the distal line is a little bit shorter. So my critique of this particular implant is going to be that several things, okay? One, we are a little bit to the distal, so our options are we can translate the implant over, and then and we're also a little bit to the lingual, quite a bit actually. And then if you notice here, there's some measurements, and this follows a rule, and I have some issue with the plan of this rule in the sense that we have to make the assumption that this CEREC data is in the right spot. So what if the tooth is really emerging from right here? So it becomes a little bit somewhat questionable when we use the CEREC data. When I can't see who drew it and how it was drawn. So my preference is to be able to see the data set and know that this is correct. So for the time being, we'll just ignore these numbers right here. But just to give you an idea, let's just assume this was right. In this case, we would want to move this implant down a little bit. And the reason being, give us more room to build out that emergence profile versus bringing it up and then just having to bring it out real quick. We want to transition that emergence profile out. So now let's go ahead and go to the original plan, which I renamed as my own, and we'll walk through fixing all of this. So let me just go ahead and remove some of these lines here. And now we have everything the way we would like it to be. So let's go through our planning guideline. Mesiodistally, we have adequate space between the roots. We are pretty well centered. Buccolingually, we can again see that it's incorrect. We're very thin here. We take a great risk of, even with this plan, having that bone dehiscence. Again, not because we will expose it, but because the trauma of the surgery and the healing process may cause these threads to become exposed. So again, our options are we could move it over, but then we get this issue, or we could tilt it over, which probably most people would do. But if, again, we're going to have the problem of the implant coming through the lingual wall of the tooth, which presents, again, some long-term hygiene and occlusal issues. So what we have to do now is make the determination that we are going to have to likely graft this area right here. Okay, so let's go ahead and make that assumption that we're going to need to graft the area, and that'll make life a little bit easier for us and allow us to place the implant in the more ideal position. So then my question becomes, if we're going to graft this area, why compromise at all? And I do believe that this plan is a compromise in the sense that buccolingually, right here, it's not centered in the tooth properly. So I think the fix for this implant plan is pretty simple. We're just going to go ahead and move it forward by tilting it, okay? And in doing so, we're going to get the implant probably in a better alignment to make the emergence profile a bit better, and to also support the tooth more properly. And you can clearly see here that this is a better alignment. It's better centered mesiodistally. So in bone level, again, I would probably drop this just a hair. Again, I'm comfortable with this length. I'm comfortable with this right here. You do have to note that, remember, the implant drills are going to be a bit longer. The good news is they are tapered and they're spayed, so they're not going to be long the entire area, but more just there's going to be a little bit of a point right here. So your implant drill will probably be, wrong thing there, sorry. The implant drill will probably be looking something like this. Right there. So I wouldn't overly worry about this area right here. Just want to reinforce that point that the implant drills are longer than the implant plan. So now, one of the last steps we have to look at is the sleeve, and again we want to make sure we look at the sleeve. Now we need to look at the sleeve for a couple of reasons in this particular case. One, I'm not worried about the tissue height. What I am more worried about is what I'm seeing right here, and that is that we're hitting the adjacent teeth. So what are our solutions to this problem? One, we can certainly go to a smaller implant. Now we're not hitting the adjacent teeth, but I'm not a fan of using this size implant in this particular case, certainly 3.5 by 10. I would prefer to use a 4.3 by 10 in this case. So what I would do is make a note to CCAT in the planning process and the surgery ordering process that we intend to make enamelplasty the adjacent teeth to make the guide fit. And the benefit of doing that is going to be that they will not hold your case up, and it will certainly come back more timely than having to wait the day for them to send you the email and then for you to get the response back and all of those things that go with it. So and the last step we'll do is we'll go through in a 360 view here, and again, really in this particular case there's not much to look at. We've got plenty of room between our adjacent teeth. We know we're going to have to graft this area. That's not unusual for a long time missing tooth here. So again, I think we're ready to rock and roll in this. Just know that we need to graft. What I would do here is make a crestal incision leaning towards the lingual, flap it back, expose all the way down, drill my osteotomy, place my implant, place some decortication around burr, and then go ahead and add my bone grafting material, whether you use synthetic or cadaver bone. Probably in this particular case you won't need to use a membrane, since we can recreate primary closure, but certainly you can use a collagen membrane or a PTFE membrane in this particular case. And it's pretty straight, again, it's a pretty straightforward case. The only other thing I'd like to point out in this particular case is there seems to be something going on here on tooth number 28. If we take a closer look at that, we can see right here there seems to be a periapical lesion on tooth number 28. Obviously you want to be aware of that. Talk to the patient about that. Maybe it's a good opportunity to go ahead and take out tooth number 28 and deal with 28 and 29 at the same time. These are always the things that we think about with our patients. Again, thank you very much, and look forward to doing some additional cases.